Welcome to the Spiritist Companion Podcast, your bilingual podcast about Spiritism. My name is Yuri Castro, and this is our special segment, Parable Fridays, where every 2 Fridays we explore a parable of Jesus through the illuminating lens of Spiritism. In today's episode, we'll explore a short but powerful teaching from Jesus, the parable of the mustard seed, found in Matthew 13. The parable itself says, "The kingdom of heaven is like a mustard seed, which a man took and sowed in his field. Though it is the smallest of all seeds, yet when it grows, it is the largest of garden plants and becomes a tree, so that the birds come and perch in its branches." But what does that mean? Well, on the surface, this parable is rather simple. Something tiny, the smallest of seeds, becomes something great. But what is Jesus really teaching us here? In Spiritism, the kingdom of heaven does not refer to a physical place, but rather to a state of spiritual elevation, of inner spiritual elevation, which is a condition of the soul in harmony with divine laws. So when Jesus says the kingdom of heaven is like a mustard seed, he's telling us that the spiritual journey often begins with something small, perhaps even invisible to others, a simple thought, an act of kindness, a quiet decision to change. And this decision, this evolution comes from the inside out. But when nurtured, that seed grows. So this is one of the things that the Master is alluding to. We also learn that this evolution of the soul is progressive and eternal. In the Spirit's book, they're going to tell us that all spirits were created simple and ignorant, but with the destiny of reaching perfection. So we were created simple and ignorant, but we will achieve a perfect state. So that means that every enlightened spirit, every benefactor, every so-called angel per se, began with a mustard seed of spiritual awakening. The great tree of wisdom and virtue grows slowly, reincarnation after reincarnation, experience after experience, slowly and gradual. Yet, we also learn that the law of progress, so central in Spiritism, reminds us that growth may be imperceptible at first, just like a seed beneath the soil. But with effort, faith, and the support of reincarnation, our inner kingdom develops. This inner tree that's growing from that seed will continue to grow and develop. We also learn through Emmanuel, the benefactor that wrote through Chico Xavier, that we should never underestimate the value of small beginnings. A single kind gesture may be the seed of great renewal in the garden of the soul. But let's be honest, we often underestimate the value of small beginnings. We often overlook the small acts of kindness, either those toward ourselves or those that we can perform towards others. Another important point of the parable is when Jesus said, "A man sowed the seed in his field." There is intention behind this sowing the seed too. He willingly sowed the seed, which Jesus compared to the kingdom of heaven. And this is an aspect of the parable that often goes unnoticed, but that is extremely important as well. The sower is each one of us, and the field is our life, our choices, our inner world. So the question therefore becomes, what are we sowing in the field of our soul? Are we nurturing seeds of patience, faith, charity, in other words, the seeds of virtue? Or are we ignoring them in favor of the illusions of the material world, the seeds that will grow but will soon die, because everything that's material is ephemeral. Everything that's material will not stay for eternity. In the Gospel according to Spiritism, chapter 17, Kardec tells us that moral perfection is built step by step, like the cultivation of a garden. So he's also making a similar analogy. And as in the parable, it begins as well with something that may seem insignificant, but that has immense potential. Joanna de Angelis, who wrote through Divaldo Franco, tells us that spiritual enlightenment does not come through explosions of glory, but through the gentle accumulation of conscious effort. So she is referring to this accumulation that is gentle of a conscious effort. Remember, we just talked about how the man willingly sowed his seed in the parable? This speaks directly to the parable's message. The tree does not emerge in one day. It must be cultivated, must be nurtured. So too must our virtues. They won't happen, as she says, in an explosion of glory from night to day. It is very much gradual, much like the kingdom of heaven, as this mustard seed that will grow inside our own hearts. So let's reflect together, my friends. Have you ever felt like your spiritual efforts were too small to matter? Have you doubted the impact of one prayer, one word of encouragement, or one step toward forgiveness? The parable teaches us that small actions, when aligned with divine love, carry eternal value. That is the kingdom of heaven that Jesus was talking about. Think of the moments when a seemingly minor gesture touched your life. Maybe someone listened when you needed it. Maybe you offered help without expecting anything, and it changed someone's day or life. That is the mustard seed in action. In Spiritism, we believe that every moral progress is recorded in the soul and contributes to our growth, regardless of how small it may appear at first. And that is very key in understanding how we can see the parable in our daily lives. So how can we cultivate the seed? Let's take a moment to see how we can apply this lesson of the parable to our daily life. A couple of ways here to nurture the spiritual mustard seed, let's call it like that. 1, daily inner reflection. I recommend setting aside, let's say, 5 minutes each day to ask, what did I learn today? What virtue did I try to practice? By doing a small reflection like that, we're already doing something that's going to be very important in growing that spiritual mustard seed. Number 2, we can also do acts of silent charity. So give, help, or encourage even if no one sees you doing such. That is true spiritual sowing. That means doing what we can and where we can, without waiting for the perfect moment to arrive. And also, number 3, faith in the process. Trust that even when you don't see the results, growth is happening. The roots go deep before the tree rises. Let's remember that. So we must have faith that whenever we are truly nurturing that spiritual mustard seed, which Jesus compared to the kingdom of heaven, we're doing so in a way that the roots will first be strengthened, will first grow deeper before the tree can actually rise up. And one final thought on the parable. Let's not forget the last part, where Jesus says, so that the birds come and perch in its branches. What does this mean? This means that as we grow spiritually, we can become a shelter for others. Our tree, which was once a seed, becomes a safe haven, a source of peace and inspiration. So this is the Spiritist view of evolution, not only for ourselves, but for the good of all. Much like the seed who was compared to the kingdom of heaven, there's no way that a tree will grow and will not include others. So, my dear friends, do not be discouraged if your progress feels slow. Even the greatest souls started with a mustard seed. In God's garden, no effort is wasted. Plant with love, water with faith, and trust that in time your inner kingdom will blossom and others will find rest in its shade. We've reached the end, and I wanted to thank you for joining me in this Parable Friday of the Spiritist Companion podcast. If this message inspired you, please share it with someone who might need hope, encouragement, or clarity on their path. See you in 2 Fridays, and until then, stay faithful, stay rooted, and keep growing. With fraternal love, your Spiritist Companion.